So you went deep within the music industry from a record label owner to running
He basically did the Clive Davis thing from a lawyer.
So from a lawyer, I ran the music industry first. I became the CEO of ASAMI, Association of South African Music Industries, which now is called RISA, the Recording Industry of South Africa. And so by being in ASAMI, I then had to be responsible for all anti-counterfeiting measures, copyright issues. I even had a little police force in my office. Sorry, he wants to say something.
No, it's fine. Continue.
But remember, that's one of the main reasons why we wanted to have this chat on the music part.
Okay.
Because, you know, a lot of artists, I don't know, man, they were dying poor, if I may put it like that.
Yeah.
So your job was to kind of protect or was to pay artists royalties?
So you know, if I were to run a thread on my life, and I'll come back to your question just now, because now, you know, when you get to a particular point and you do a retrospective and you try and check, you know, what it is you've done sort of consistently. So I've always been a social justice activist.
Social justice activist.
Mm-hmm. You know, my purpose, which I mention in every interview whenever I'm asked, is global change, global impact, and global social justice. But when I now look at my behavior and the things that I've done in the past, they've always been aligned to that. And why do I mention within the context of the music industry? So once I had been introduced into it and I now found myself in the music industry, I then realized that the level of exploitation was unparalleled. Joe Nina is a good example. It's the best example, in fact, for what I encountered at the time. Joe Nina was probably one of the most talented artists I'd ever encountered at the time.
He was also a producer, right?
He was. He was a producer, he was a writer, he was a performer. That's why I'm using him as an example, because that's how I also taught my son. You know, my son and I had an ongoing thing. He didn't want to finish his studies, and I said, my boy, if I am going to be involved in your business, you must finish your studies. And his main thing was he thought, I'm saying he must finish his studies because he must have something to fall back on. I said, no, I would never insult you like that. I trust you as my boy. If you say you want to be a musician, I trust you. You're going to be successful as a musician. But having seen what I've seen, I would like you to be the best at being a business runner, business owner in music.
Like understanding.
You must know, because people get robbed blind, right? So now let's go back to this. So now Joe Nina comes to me. He has an agreement he must sign with Polygram. Polygram is what is universal today under Harry Furman, the CEO at the time. A guy called Gary Finch was involved in artist and repertoire. He was doing the A&R. And
he also owned a record label on the side.
Yeah. So I'm reading this article, this thing. So I asked Joe and I said, so what are you going to do? So he tells me what he's going to do. So I said to him, then this agreement is wrong. He says, why is it wrong? I said, it's wrong because it only talks about you as a performer of music. But my understanding from what Polygram expects of you is that you're going to write music not only for yourself, but for other artists. You're going to be in charge of the arrangement as an engineer. You're going to be in charge of all producing. And so this for me doesn't make sense, because these are different pockets of rights. And because they're different pockets of rights, they give rise to different sets of royalties. And from a business point of view and a wealth creation point of view, you will never make money because everybody else will be making money at your expense. So my role then became a very arduous and difficult task of trying to educate my clients, because I believe the record companies knew what they were doing. I didn't have to educate them. They were very aware of their exploitative ways. Educate my clients, but at the same time find a very creative and innovative way of being able to raise funds for my clients, because they didn't have funds to pay for themselves for my services. And I found that they were getting sucked, which every artist does throughout the world. Even if you read about what Clive Davis used to do with all his artists and everyone in the world, even Michael Jackson had this problem, is that every artist tends to be tempted to go and take an advance.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest evil in the music industry, is that advance. Because that's how you get caught for life. You can never escape. So mine was a multi-educational kind of role. So I wasn't just a lawyer. I was like the guy who was trying to change a system that was very, very bad. And so all my clients became some kind of an experiment. That's why I use the word guinea pig. A bit of an experiment where, for example, the first time I tried to get a sign-on fee as opposed to an advance, because you also have to be alive to the socioeconomic factors, that the majority of our people come from very poor homes. So you have not only the pressure of having to get a job, but you also have the pressure of people believing that as a musician you're wasting time, right? So you want to also look after your family and get a job and make money, but at the same time you're acutely aware that the people that are your peeps that must support you don't believe that the thing you're doing is going to take them and you anywhere. So the first time I tried to get a sign-on fee, for Joe Nina. Gary Finch laughed and he says, Kazi, Kazi, you must be confused. I said, why? He says, you think this is football, Kazi? So I said, no, I'm acutely aware that it's music.
So the signing on fee was going to be different from the advance?
Yes, because the advance is recoupable, whereas I want the sign-on fee not to be recoupable, right? So, and I mean, that's a big difference already in terms of starting out, because you have a little bit of capital that's yours. So Gary Finch flatly refused. Joe was still very young. He was coming in, so we had to find another creative way of him being paid monies in between once he's proved himself without them being recoupable, but I couldn't get it at the beginning. But then it gets sweet. Jabu Kanyile then comes and becomes my artist and he's already made a name for himself. And so I remember I wanted 10,000 Rand for Jabu, for Joe.
This is 91.
This is now 92.
92, okay.
92. So I want 10,000 Rand for Joe as a sign-on fee. And Jabu Kanyile comes to me 93. And I tell Polygram I want 100,000 sign-on fee. There's no flinching, no laughing anymore. He goes and he gives the 100,000. So I said, so in 1 year, Kazi, football has influenced music, has it? So that's really, so one was trying to educate, break up the different elements of rights, make them understood to people. And when I finally went to run the music industry, it became even more important when I was running as a SAMI, because I was representing now the industry, to be able to, when I was reformulating the South African Music Awards and as a brandable item that my team and I took to Sun City.
The awards started in 95, right?
They started in 95, yes. Because I then went to Asami in 96, 7. So when I took them to Sun City, having to understand those, so I spend a lot of time now with the Brits and the Grammys, to understand how they run, getting sponsorship. Standard Bank was still sponsoring, so I even brokered the Standard Bank deal, because Standard Bank at the time was also looking for me to consult to them, to help them with a project called Simpler, Better, Faster. That's how the Joy of Jazz started. Peter Clady,
Standard Bank Arena.
Standard Bank, yes. Peter Clady did Simpler, Better, whatever it was at the time, I just said it. And then there was a friend of mine who was the marketing director at Standard Bank, which helped with the Peter Clady Joy of Jazz project, and also the music awards. But then I also found that all the contracts in the industry were a complete mess. Contracts with Mnet, contracts with SABC, contracts with Channel O, I think at the time.
Blanket licenses?
Yes, blanket licenses for the audiovisual exploitation of rights, the payment
Like the
mechanisms.
Had RAV started?
There was no
by that
needle
time?
time.
There was no nickel time.
I lobbied for needle time.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Was there RAV then?
What is REV? Just
For video.
Like the RISA audiovisual
Yes. But it wasn't called that at the time. At the time, it was just audiovisual exploitation of rights. But I realized that these contracts were badly structured. So I had to redo all the contracts. I wasn't very popular with the radio stations and the TV stations. They didn't like me at all.
Because you were coming to get.
You were white.
I was coming to collect and to create more taxes for them. It was like, and so when we then got to the needle time, so with two things that were done out of my office was the first local content lobby. Somebody said to me in another interview, I think it was with DJ Sbu, and they said when I was reading the comments, he said, but that was started by, who's the guy from SABC, by Tlhaudi. So I said, no, Tlhaudi was a baby. Maybe he wasn't born when I did local content. I'm talking about the first lobby for it. There was not even a CASA.
For local content.
For local content. There was no local content.
Sharon D even made a song during that lobby.
Oh, Sharon D was also my client.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah.
That's why she made that song.
I told you, Dogs, Lomene legend.
Sharon D was also my client. Local is legend.
That was the lobby
You
song.
see, now he's onto something. You see, that's why people don't understand him, because he does his research well.
I don't do any research.
So people
It's just
don't
my
know
memory
this.
bank.
But the thing is, it's very pertinent, the point you've made, because
It was my favorite song at the time.
you may not realize how pertinent it is, but it's very pertinent. Because at the time, one of the things that the radio stations hated is that two things. They said, this local content, what is this local content? You want us to play bubblegum music. So I said, what is that? What do you mean bubblegum music? They said, it's just music that nobody wants to listen to. So I said, but how do you know? How do you know people don't want to listen to it when you've never played it? Shouldn't you?
Who's that? Koos Khateb.
No, it wasn't Koos Khatebe. This is pre-Koos Khatebe. This was some white people like Ian DeForce at Classic FM. He didn't like me, that guy. So he even walked out of a conference the one time. As I walked in, he left. But the thing is, they were saying it's bubble. I said, but you have to play it first. Surely it must be the people who tell you that, not you deciding that it's bubblegum music, right? Then, do you know what we had to do? Our own people, and this is where now our colonialist past, I mean, you may know that I'm very vocal about being African and people being colonially
That's what we like.
infested.
Where are you from originally? The rural?
The rural villages, Shele.
Oh, I know that.
Just villages.
I know.
Rural, proper rural.
Yeah.
There's no shops there. There's
My
no...
great-great-grandfather comes from there. No? Great-great-grandmother.
Comes from Shele.
Yeah, she's Sutu.
Okay. Yeah, no, she must be a great person. So we don't have tar roads.
No, you guys are Sutu and Xhosa.
Sutu, Xhosa, Africa, and Sutu. You speak 4 languages there as you were born. But the thing for me was that, I now realize that the biggest problem that we have, which still is today in different ways, is that we have very low self-esteem as Black African people. We have this thing that we get excited when white people tell us that we always bought the best Italian shoes because we've got class. Because that's a very pregnant statement, that you buy Italian shoes because you have class. So once you're given a statement like that, you can't help but agree with that statement because you want to have class. You want to be known to have an appreciation of good things, right? But embedded in it is the fact that it can only be good if it comes from Italy, right? So you've agreed to it, to the statement, right? And so I realized that it was the same problem. People, yes, I was fighting with radio stations and TV stations, trying to convince the IBA, it was pre-CASA, it was still called IBA, that we have something to protect. I'd been to France, I'd been to the US, France particularly was particularly protective of their own culture. And protecting their artists and their musicians. And I was saying, why are we not doing that here? I don't understand. We have lots of talent. We have lots of different cultures and whatever that we can infuse and do whatever. So I then had to find in my office, we then had to come up with a concept, a project. Local is lekker.
Oh, well done. I liked it. I stole your idea, but I couldn't do it as well.
Yeah?
I created a lobby called Play Local or Die.
Pay local or die? Play local or die. That's a good one as well. I think because that's important, right? It's important, it's critical. I think people need to understand, and it goes deep because it's play local or die. I mean, symbolically and in real.
So at the time, was the organization that you were running paying out all different types of royalties, because like how it is right now?
No,
or you
RISA
guys-
doesn't pay royalties. It's an association of all the recording companies. The ones that pay royalties are the SEMPRA, SEMRO.
Sampra processes legal time.
Yeah, but they pay
His
a DANC.
office.
So now I'm going to have to disagree with him because now he's wrong. Yes. So RISA may have stopped now, I don't know. But certainly when I was redoing the contracts, remember that Asami represents the producers of music, not the producer artists, but the producer companies. So Asami would represent, for example, Gallo, which had the Warner's license, the Polygram, the labels. It would represent the majors and also the indies. Okay, so we had something like, I think, about 90 indies back in the day. The Sheer Sounds of this world, the Galawa, Jazz Mears, and whatever had come in. And then we had the majority, the major record companies. So what happens is that all the producer-related royalties from radio and TV are paid through RISA. They were paid through Asami at the time. I don't know now.
Anymore.
And then
Only
Asami.
Rev.
That's
Only
what I'm
Rev
trying to
pays
understand. How
music
did
video.
Yeah.
Sampler break out from RISA? How did Capasso break out from RISA?
That was after my time. But Asami certainly was paying for that. All the monies came through Asami to go through to their members based on a formula, because we were trying also at that time to set up an internet kind of liquid form of being able to detect whose music was played how often, because they just used to use a formula at the SAPC that made no sense. You know, they would simply just decide, would I know, Nklambulo's we think was played 10 times because it's popular. The ones that are not popular, we think were played 2 times. Then you say, okay, what do you base it on? And there were no
cue sheets.
No, they couldn't give you that. Then when we then lobbied for needle time was the second round now of the hate by record companies, because then you may not be aware of this, that South Africa had been the only country where we previously had needle time. And
Previously?
Yes, we were one of the few countries that had it, and the others continued, but we're the only country that had it, and it was taken off our law by a very misguided Afrikaans minister in the 60s, who argued that there is no need to keep making money, so much money for these artists. They don't deserve all this money. So it wasn't on the basis that you are not entitled. It wasn't on the basis that you've earned it. It was on the basis that you're an artist. And of course, you were likely to be black.
Or you are likely to go against the government once you've got enough
You got
money.
too much money. You're
Fuck you, cash.
going to get creative, right? So they then took it off our law. So our lobby in my office was to bring it back, was to bring back needle time. And I was trying to explain this to the DTI at the time. I remember there was a guy who shares a surname with the guy who used to be Thabo Mbeki's advisor, Joe Nechi somebody, Nechi Tenje. There was this Nechi Tenje guy at DTI who every time I met him, he'd say, Mthunzi, I wish you'd talk to me like I'm a child or like you're a child. I said, well, both of us must be children. He says, yes, because I need you to tell me exactly, what do you want? I said, I want needle time. He says, yes, what is that? Why do you want it, right? So we would sit with this and try to explain what it is, and I had to break it down then to say, okay, let me speak like a child. So you see, these artists, you and I go to the office, and so we go at 8 o'clock, we wear a suit and a tie, then we work till 5. So these artists, some of them are up at 12 midnight working. So they work 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe sleep, and then again at 7, wake up, again, continue working. So they work, but they work in a different way to the way you and I work. You work for a salary, they don't have a salary. They work because out of their sweat, they need to get royalties. So a public performance right, which is what needle time is, for example, how I broke it down to him was I said, do you know Whitney Houston? He said, yes. I said, okay. Now, you know that Whitney Houston never wrote the song, I Will Always Love You. Mm-hmm. He didn't know that. He said, okay, what's your point? I said, my point is the following. Dolly Parton makes a lot of money from Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You because Dolly Parton wrote the song, but it bombed. But Whitney sang it, Clive Davis, thanks to Clive Davis, and
Bodyguard.
it became big, right? So he says, yeah? I said, now, here's the thing. So, but when Whitney Houston gives life to I Will Always Love You, other than getting money from gate takings, she makes no money for breathing fire and life into the song. That is called a public performance right. So now she's entitled, and it's called needle time because at the time everything was vinyl. So the whole rationale is that you're getting the fee for how it plays on the vinyl. That's needle time. It's playing, but who's singing it? Whitney's singing it. It's not Dolly Parton. Yes, or performing it. So hence the needle time. So that's really how some of us got involved. Yeah.
Sampra is now distributing those needle time, and they're making a whole lot of workshops.
Yeah.
Which I remember we spoke about this on our LinkedIn. You actually commented on my post.
Yes.
I was like, there's so many workshops, but are they really hitting the right notes with these workshops?
So the problem that he experienced when he was explaining to Joel Nechitenze is a problem that I experienced when we went back to the DTI for the Copyright Amendment Bill. And then we had to go to Scopa to basically lobby them to send it back. Because you were speaking about the incompetence of the people that we have in a higher position, and also how we've inherited that because people were hired because they were white, not because they were competent, you know what I mean? And so we've seen incompetent leadership throughout, our colonial history.
So you remember when we started, I talked about how I've had this natural propensity towards social justice activism. So from the music industry, I went into the IT industry. I then was part of a team that built one of the most successful IT companies in the world.
Accenture?
No, we built a training company called Talk IT.
Oh, I've heard of Talk IT.
And Talk IT we built in 27 countries. And we became the go-to company for Microsoft, the go-to company for Cisco. We trained people in cloud computing before it existed. There was no cloud before my company. We trained people. I had to be trained.
So you were the Azure, you were the AWS before?
I had to have it explained to me for starters because I'm a rural boy who'd never done any computing.
When was that?
This was
when you made
around
the switch up?
2002, 2003.
So right after the crash?
Yeah, yes. In fact, I was involved as the 2000 Y2K was happening. I was already in IT and we were worried about what the world was worried about what's going to happen. And then I got into that. Now, I mention this because, in the IT industry, I had a guy come to recruit me. I've mentioned this in other interviews, came to Talk IT. Talk IT was a company in trouble. My partners and I had to turn it around from a 36 million cumulative loss company. It was a little company. Used that cumulative loss and the debt it was in and turn it around and made it one of the most profitable companies, and it became the leader. It was the top 10 companies that Cisco would go to for anything when they were introducing new products. But a guy came to recruit me for the BITF, for the Black Information Technology Forum, because he said he was looking for revolutionaries. And I said to him, sorry, I'm from the rural villages, and what I know about the revolution is what happened in France with Marie Antoinette,
and then Haiti.
And then other than that, I don't know much, and what I read in African politics and what have you. And he said, no, don't worry about how we identify revolutionaries. We know, and you are, but we want to recruit you. So anyway, I then ended up being in the Black Information Technology Forum. I became the Secretary General of that. I became the chairman of that, national chair. And then quite at the same time, I became the president of the Information Technology Association, which was for whites, which was the Accentures of this world, which was the SAPs of this world, which was the Ciscos I've talked about, and my own company. And I mention this because it's important, because when I was there, I was part of framing the Information Communications Technology BE Charter. We were the first charter that made sense. Okay, this we finished in about 2003. There was still a minister called Matsipe Kasaburi at the time.
Hey, Ivy
Matsipe Kasaburi. Now, in 2006, I won the IT Personality of the Year. You can look up my speech. So when I was in that competition and I thought I might win, and we're having a lot of pushback from the multinational companies who were going to Thabo Mbeki and reporting myself and Dali Mpofu for being, I think, radical black people who are going to prevent foreign direct investment from coming to the country because we wanted BE. And when I thought I might win, because I didn't know if I was going to win the IT Personality of the Year, and I was told you can only speak for 2 minutes. I woke up, went to my study, and I wrote a 5-minute speech. And I decided if I win, they can go to hell. I'm going to speak for 5 minutes. I'm not speaking for 2 minutes. And then I wrote a speech that was entitled Satis est satis. In Latin, satis est satis means enough is enough.
Oh, enough is enough.
And then I let rip. And then I won. Okay? So when they announced that I'd won, they said, and the guy who has won, when he was interviewed, he said, you must practice what you preach. And I knew that was me. So everybody from my company started screaming, and I went and I made that speech. Every CEO of every multinational stopped speaking to me.
After the speech?
Every American multinational.
So you had a Zuma-esque investment strike on yourself?
You don't understand.
You were sanctioned.
And I'm mentioning this because I'm trying to answer the question he asked about doing things like that. And somebody reminded me of many other things that I've done of a similar ilk. Now, when you are looking to break into, so I'd done these things and I became the vice president of business in South Africa for BUSA around 2006, 2007, before I went on to the ILO and became the vice president of the International Organization of Employers and also the vice chairman of the ILO, as I said, the first African since the First World War, when I became that in 2017. I had spoken out before I left, but I upset Zuma.
Oh.
Yes, President Zuma. Because President...
Personally?
Yeah.
Or you
personally.
Okay.
I was told. Because President Zuma wanted Sandile Zungu to be the president of BUSA. And I had been accused of blocking it because I instead got Mthunzi Mdwaba, who was at the time the CEO of Deloitte, as the first woman president of BUSA, right? And I was told, and I was also the chairman at the time of something called the CBBO, the Confederation of Black Business Organizations. I'd been asked by the ANC...
Is that still around?
No.
Okay, what is it now?
Well, now there's the BBC and BUSA, that's it. But I mentioned this because I'd been asked by the ANC to convene all the black professionals into the convention center. I got about 5,000 people there. And I made the mistake of asking some questions. One of the questions I asked was, what is it about the ANC that fails to do what it's meant to do in government? What is it about the ANC that is, destroying the brand and eroding the brand of the ANC by failing to govern? And the examples I made was, every time we have an election, we've got to assemble people like this and we must spin. I said, why are we always spinning and not just doing stuff so we don't have to spin? Why don't we just do the work, right? And then I asked President Zuma. President Zuma was sitting on the stage with Paul Mashatile. And I said, Paul Mashatile at the time was, I think, treasurer of Gauteng or something, whatever.
It must have been human settlements.
But he was something.
Yeah.
And I said, Paul.
Gauteng MEC for human settlements.
I said, Paul, your son and my son go to Saints. I said, I don't know if you have a conversation with your son, but my son and his friends, they ask me, what is our fascination with this ANC? They said, but this ANC, yes, Daddy did something for you, but what is it doing for us?
Right now.
And why is it that we are scared about getting jobs and yet we go to such good schools? Shouldn't we be creating jobs? And I said exactly this. And I said, South Africa has a huge erosion of entrepreneurship. We are failing to we're going down on entrepreneurship, innovation year on year, and we're doing nothing. And then Zuma misunderstood. Zuma thought I was talking about enterprise development. So I said, no, Mr. President, I'm not talking about enterprise development, I'm talking about entrepreneurship. I'm talking about the basis for the enterprise development. I'm talking about the very seed of starting.
Yeah, you're not talking about the hand up, you're talking about
the
start.
So when I left that event, they said I was so disrespectful to Zuma, I was even pointing at him, they said. So after that, I became persona non grata. My friends wouldn't do business with me.
You were cancelled?
Yeah. Nobody would do business with me in South Africa. Fortunately, I'd already sold Talk IT. I'd sold another business I co-owned with Vodacom that I co-owned at the time, and a few other things. I was chairman of Young and
This
Rubicam.
is in the time where Ubuntu was also sold for a couple billion.
Yes.
Mark Shuttleworth's company.
Yeah. I was chairman of Young and Rubicam advertising agency at the time. Things just became very difficult, right? So that's when I decided I'm leaving. So coming back now to answer his question, I decided, I don't want to cause trouble. I want to come back and lead as quiet an existence as I possibly can. Especially because in 2021, 22, the South African government under Nxesi, who is definitely not coming back as a minister now, I see he's off, thank God, was...
getting
The
in-
Labour, Thulas Nxesi.
Are we getting into the
Labour minister.
500 trillion deal?
We will get into that, but he starts a little bit earlier because he starts by talking about, he blocks me from being the candidate to be the Director General of the ILO. So I had been lobbied to be the first African Director General of the ILO. South Africa decampaigned me. South Africa decampaigned me. Cyril, Nxesi, and a few of their thugs, right? So, and I know this, it will make this, it will be my second
You must have
book.
been very competent.
I've just finished my one book, and I've mentioned this in passing in my one book that the University of Johannesburg is publishing on the ILO. But the second book is going to have a whole chapter on Cyril and these thugs. So now I'm coming back to do as little as possible, but I want to run a legacy project for my country and create jobs for young people and create jobs
That your kids won't qualify for.
Sorry,
That your kids won't qualify for.
why not?
Well, I mean, they don't come from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Well, I wasn't looking at creating jobs only for people who are disadvantaged. I was looking for creating jobs full stop. I was looking to create enterprises. I was looking to make sure we have sustainable enterprises. So whether you come from a disadvantage or not, because at some stage we also need to start saying, how do we make sure we cater for everybody? Of course, the main focus has to be for the people right at the bottom, right? To make sure that they also come up to some levels. But in putting that together to create the employment and do all the things and creating this ecosystem that I created, again, because of my knowledge of Talk IT, having built Talk IT in 27 countries, having known how to convert training into employability, all of a sudden I find that this is being blocked and the rest is history. Then I'm offered I must pay a bribe, a gateway fee, and all the things that were talked about. But I think somewhere along the line, some friends of mine had said, I must get into politics. I said, no. I've done enough, I think, for humanity. I've done enough. I've spent all my years in Switzerland. I missed my son, the musician's birthday, every year for 9-10 years. It's always is June 8. I was never home for his birthday. I said,
Happy birthday to him.
Yes. I
Happy
said,
birthday.
I said, come on. I really now want to do things for me, for my family, and just, chill. I don't have an issue about doing things for people. I've done so much for people, the whole world, right? Then my friend said, yeah, but you've got to get into politics. So I ignored them. But of course, I think a combination of things happened. I think probably the stuff that was happening with this bribery, stuff that was happening with me now being in South Africa and seeing how terrible this is for the future of our young people, and listening to my kids, listening to their friends. My house is a house where all their friends, that's where they have conversations at my house.
The PlayStation house.
And so, well, you could call it that, but it's the house where Uncle Mthunzi, as they call it, has swag. And they used to call me Uncle Mthunzi is the one who's going to listen to us and whatever. So it's that kind of house, right? Where and I love that. For me, I love that I can be, given these fresh perspectives from young people
And
who
share
tell
war
me,
stories
and yeah, but listen mostly, and then share my stuff if they're interested. But I'm interested in how do we make the country and the world a better place. For me, that's always been my drive. I'm driving my car up. My office was just in Rivonia, what do you call it, where the treason thing was, that place, right? So I'm driving at the back there. There's an engine garage at the back of Vetkoppen, I think, whatever it is at the back there. And I see some people under the trees, they're talking and whatever. So I see they're wearing ANC colors. So I open the window. Hey man, what's happening? No, this is their meeting place every Sunday. So I said to them, no, you're the ruling party. How can you meet under trees? You can come meet in my building. So I give them my building, the Talk IT building. We had a 3,500 square meter building. And we owned the building as the owners of the business.
Talk IT was leasing the premises from
us.
Okay.
Yeah. Eventually we went to a point where we bought all our buildings, wherever we had a place. So I'm saying ANC can come, the youth league can meet there, the women's league can meet there, everybody can meet there. And so that was my relationship with the ANC. Even when they said sit on the BT, on the branch executive something, whatever, I can't remember what it's called now. BC. So I said, no. I just want you guys to have a safe space. My sister, who used to provide catering at Talk IT, used to provide catering to the ANC for free every week,
nice.
paid for by us, right? So, and when they wanted donations, we would give a donation every now and then. I would tell my financial director, who was Afrikaans, I said, Gerard, just give them, just give them what they want, right? But I was never an activist in the ANC. I don't want to give that impression. I was never a guy who goes there and sits in these meetings and whatever you. Eventually, I think I agreed to be in the branch executive meeting, committee, whatever it was. But fast forward, I found that the ANC was so difficult to get to the leadership of it. It became such a difficult organization. Where
What do you mean, to speak to the leadership
to speak
or
to the leadership?
rise
No, to
the
speak
ranks?
to them, to speak even to the NEC. They just became
Maybe wasn't it about the fact that you were cancelled?
cancelled in what way?
2002.
I'm talking back then now.
Talking back then.
Progressionally, as I'm doing things for the ANC, I'm called. You remember I said I was asked to convene a meeting at the convention center, about 5,000 people in my capacity as the chairman of
And by the way, 16 years ago is 2008, not 2009.
2008 and what?
16 years ago is 2008, not 2009.
Why are you saying this?
You don't know about the guy, Ronaldo Gos, the DA racist, who
Oh.
said 16 years ago, back in 2009.
Oh, that guy. Sorry. No, I know that this morning there were 33,000 votes against him. I hope now there's 100,000. But the thing for
But
me,
it's not going anywhere. They're
you
not
don't
going
think?
to remove
I
him.
hope he is going somewhere.
I also hope so.
But I want to get, because now I'm conscious that I don't finish answering the questions, because we then get many other things that cut through, right? So for me, it became clear, even when I was told I disrespected Zuma, that it's like, if you speak, you can't speak. There were all the ministers there, they attended this thing, their NEC people attended, but nobody says, hey, you know what, there's a point here, can we talk about it, right? And increasingly, there was a big problem. They blocked me and decampaigned me. I was decampaigned by the ANC SACP alliance. They decampaigned me. And everybody in the world wanted me to lead the ILO.
Crazy.
I would have been the first African. They ended up getting an African from Togo, who, I'm sorry, with respect, they only went to him because he's a compliant African, right? And he ended up being, but I'm happy, of course, that an African ended up becoming the first African. But you know, I was decampaigned by my own people. So now I come back and they fight my contract, they block my contract, they do all these things. I just came to the realization, especially after I spoke about the gateway fee. I had
10%.
thousands of people landing on my LinkedIn and landing on my Twitter feed, telling me their stories about how uncles, fathers, mothers died of heart attacks. Some went to ICU. Some have since stopped being in business. Some have been impoverished. I mean, all of them were such ugly stories. And all the fingers were pointing at the ANC, right? That's when I thought, it can't be saved.
But should we label it as the whole ANC, or it's certain figures in the ANC that are
No,
messing
it's a system
up
of the ANC that does not want competence. It's a kakistocracy.
I think it is a kakistocracy, but it's also a situation where they are so much in each other's asses that they can't see the light, right?
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. I mean, I met an NEC member recently, 2 weeks ago, face to face. I won't mention the person's name because, you know, I don't think it's fair. And first thing, of course, I said to the person was, you know, you were part of this mess, right? Because the person, and I'm not saying he or she because I don't want you to guess, the person was telling me how this ANC DA thing is the worst thing after whatever, right?
He's an ANC member.
NEC.
NEC.
Yeah, ANC NEC member is telling me this, right? And then I was the one who told
Not
this
top 7?
I told this person, you're not going to
Said
get
he's
me
not
there.
going to
I'm
mention
not
names.
going there. I was the first one to say to this person, but why are you shocked by this ANC DA thing? The person said, what do you mean? I said, well, I knew 5 months before the election that the ANC and the DA are going to get together. The person said, no, you can't be serious. I said, no, I'm telling you. I was told. I even thought the guy was telling me was smoking something strong and bad, right? But the person broke it down for me exactly how it was going to happen. There was going to be rigging with the IEC.
So this was planned?
It was planned. There was going to be rigging. There was CIA involved from the US.
Yes, they invited them.
There were offices.
The CIA was involved.
CIA.
Yeah, the DA invited them.
Munna. Though I was
CIA
told
has always been involved.
blow by blow how this was going to happen. So as that day, you remember the day that we disconnected, the IEC disconnected for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there at the rock. I'm thinking, hey man, hey, maybe, this thing is happening.
Movie.
It's happening in real time.
Movie.
In real time. So I'm watching, and then it comes back. And then when it comes back, I'm looking at the UDM numbers. So, for example, there'd be a number 6760, ne? And then the number fades, and then you see 7200. And then it fades, and it goes back to 6760. Haibo.
Really?
Yeah, now as a guy with some IT background, I'm thinking, hey, there's lots happening there in the kitchen.
You knew right
Something
there,
is happening.
Alana.
And then all of a sudden you see the numbers shooting up from other parties, particularly the two parties now that have got this,
Especially DA,
the
right?
Grand Coalition.
Especially DA.
The DA started getting amazing votes where there's Muslim people, you would think would not vote for people that are pro-Israel.
Yes.
But my God, but the DA is taking
DA
the leadership.
getting numbers in Dipsloot.
They were leading
locations
like
that don't make
crazy.
sense.
Apart from the pro-Israel, you travel to the Western Cape often.
Yeah.
You know the colored and black communities are over-policed. They sent the army in there. They're not dealing with the social ills that are creating the violence that, it plagues that community, and they're not giving them proper services. So their frustration is beyond the Zionism of the DA.
Yeah.
Their frustration is them
Vote for them either way.
being overlooked. Yeah, they would never vote for them. So it's not a new thing.
It's like, but anyway, so for me, when you look at the ANC and the question you asked me about, can't it be saved? If the very people that are in the NEC, some of them, are trying to block things, but instead I read that they were going to be disciplined for daring to speak against, the
They have
Grand
to toe
Coalition.
the line,
They must toe the
according to
line.
Gwede,
You see, this is the thing, toe the line. And I was told that the people who were mandated with this Grand Coalition, are people that we all know. But for me, I want to talk about maybe the positive aspects of this Grand Coalition.
No,
'Cause
positive.
I think there are some positive aspects, believe it or not.
Is this thing going to go ahead, Ben?
The Grand
is
Coalition,
going-
it is going ahead. I mean,
You
So what
saw
about
the
what Zuma
signatures.
says?
it's not going anywhere. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what Zuma says. I can tell you it's going ahead. And then you're going to have the progressive caucus that we are part of in the UDM. And they're
Jog.
gonna-
You should have known it doesn't matter what Zuma says when Paul Mashatile announced that Zuma is going to resign.
So here's can I share what I think is positive about it? Yeah, because me, I always try and look for the silver lining, no matter how bad things are, especially when you can't do anything about it, right? So, I mean, barring the ATM case, maybe by some miracle, ATM wins the case. They've cited MK. Barring MK winning their case, let's hope they win their case. Then in that case, there'll be an investigation and maybe, I don't know, re-election. We don't have the money, so I don't think it's
I
possible.
don't see a re-election
I don't think it's
happening.
possible that it would ever happen. And personally, I also think we need to focus on serving the South African people. It's very important to serve the South African people because even those young people that I would like to encourage to vote in the future with 2026 local municipal elections and 2029, my view is that they voted. When you decide not to vote, that's your vote.
Yeah, that's your vote.
That's
You
your vote.
voted.
You've made your election. But I think it's not the most prudent decision. If I may kindly appeal to young people, you need to be activist. Power is taken. Power is never given. You must be active. You can't passively decide, I'm going to vote by not voting. Then you're not influencing the future you want.
But you do understand it's coming off from being demotivated. I mean,
I understand.
You vote and then you wake up tomorrow, you're told 9 million votes were unaccounted for.
True, I understand. But now you are using an after effect argument to deal with what did not happen in the past. So that's a bit artificial. We can talk about that, because we didn't know there was going to be 9 million that was going to disappear. But I
That's
understand that.
now back on the system.
I
What
understand
you're
the
trying to say is
demotivation,
there are
though.
people at the top that are blocking our shine
True.
for us to
Yes. True.
excel as the youth.
Yeah.
It's like there's nothing that we can do.
Like I was saying, it's a kakistocracy. So the thing is that the only way to maintain it is to suppress all of those that are competent, because they are the ones that are going to expose your incompetence. So anyone that's competent, as soon as they show signs of being competent, you
you cut them at the legs
immediately.
You cut them at the legs. But I think
positive.
I think, and that's why Azola and I, I've said to Azola, now, I've had a lot of people asking me for many years, can you mentor us, right? Now, you'll be surprised to learn that I resisted this temptation of agreeing to mentor. And the reason I resisted the temptation was because I was alive to the fact that it's irresponsible to mentor somebody when you're not going to be there and be present. I believe in presentism. If I'm going to do something, I must be present. I must not just say I'm going to mentor you, then you don't see me for 2 years because I'm busy moving from there. I mean, there was a time when I was flying 30 countries a year in terms of my work in the ILO, right? I don't have the time. But now that I'm home and I'm restructuring my life, I've said to Azola and the team, let's now start these Tizoro dialogues. My nickname is Tizoro. That's why I'm Tizoro on X. Yes. And my company is Tizoro Strategic Advisory and whatever. Let's start Tizoro dialogues, but let's also start a mentoring en masse thing, because now we have this TikTok that she got me 2-3 months ago, and now I'm about to touch 9,000, I think, on TikTok the last time I checked this morning. And the engagements are hectic from young people. I'm engaging all the time. She will tell you that I respond myself 90% of the time.
You do.
Well, you've mentored me without your presence, by seeing, seriously.
Yeah?
Like,
and that's what people are telling me, right? But I saw it differently. I thought I have to, but I have people now who will come and say, Prof, we watch you from a distance, and thank you for the inspiration, and we stand on your shoulders. I said, oh, okay. So then maybe I must stop being so traditionalist about this mentorship. I must look for another innovative way, right?
Like the thing is this, like the attacks that you got from the media when you were being interviewed and everything else, right? I was just thinking to myself, what level of journalism do we have? Because this person is asking you questions. Your answer makes perfect rational sense, and yet they've got a script to try and discredit you, and then they end up asking stupid questions and making themselves stupid, trying to catch you. And I'm like, how are you going to gotcha a guy who's much more intelligent than you? Like, this guy is like, you cannot even get what he's saying. You know what I mean? Like, no, not the Tuma minions. It's not just the Tuma minions. It's like, I was just...
It's not like they don't know.
Somebody said he's a Cyrilite. I said, what's Cyrilite? I said, what is a Cyrilite? I said, it's Cyrilite,
Yeah, exactly.
You can see them, like we know them.
I'm a Mandelite.
Mandelite.
So, I believe that, those that should be given the space, and then you go out and retire after your first term. So the thing that you miss maybe is that there's a lot of other crazy people like you. You know what I mean? Like, I relate myself very much to you because your life story parallels some of the things that I've experienced, right? But what I find is that you guys, because you're older, right? A lot of you get tired along the way. And then for us, we look at you and we're like, manjo Grootman segawile. No, seriously.
Grootman is out of play.
Like, it's segawile, manje. Because
who are we going to?
So now
Sitting manje.
we're more circumspect now. Like, I'm serious.
No, but you're right. And don't say maybe I missed it. So me, I'm very good at introspecting and say, I missed it. I didn't get it. For me, how I saw mentorship was the old way of a structured, if you say I must mentor you, I must be there for you all the time. Yeah, I must be there. But it took me a long time to realize, okay, there's a way of doing this. I've got thousands of people asking. I need to fill this void, right? Because it became too much. It was actually overwhelming me. Just reading between LinkedIn and X and now TikTok. I mean, between those 3 platforms, I've got like, 25,000 or 30,000 people, right? So I'm thinking, okay. So I sat with Azola. I said, Azola, I think I have an idea. Can we do this together? And thank God that Azola came. She owns a company called GMT. I think holdings is very important, about Azola, because Azola did an amazing thing. She kept on pleading with me to manage my brand. I said,
not Greenwich Meridian
I said, what
time.
do you mean you want to manage my brand? She says, Prof, I know you're good, you're okay, you don't care. I know you don't care, but there's some tweaking we can do just to manage certain things. And I'm happy that she did. I'm happy that she raised this point because it made me look at things differently. And I started thinking, okay, I can do this mentoring differently. So I need to have some kind of way of looking at how do I have a way of talking to entrepreneurs, talking to innovators, talking to young people. Because I realized that young people sometimes just want a bouncing board. They just want to bounce something, or they want to ask a question, just one question. Say, tell me this, right? And when I respond, I get a response that says, thank you. I now know what to do, right? Can I call you maybe once in a while? Yes, it's okay. We now connected on LinkedIn, or we connected whatever, we can chat. Like I'm meeting somebody tomorrow who DM'd me 2 weeks ago, says, Prof, I'm coming to Joburg. Can I please meet you? You can't meet everybody, but some people you meet, right? He was very innovative in the way he did it on DMing me and the way he unpacked it. So for me, I've decided the young people that are demotivated because we're not there for them. Are demotivated because others block them. Demotivated because others are threatened by their existence, some of these young people, because young people just speak out. They speak their mind, right? And that's how we should be. We can't be imposing the way we were brought up. You know, the way I was brought up, I was told, my grandmother would say, yo, mtakakuli uliciko. Whenever she said that, it meant I must shut up. Yeah, she says, oh, uliciko. It meant now I must say cue to say, shut up now, right? And we can't treat you guys that way, because you've got a lot of value to give and a lot to be derived from what you can do if you are activated and empowered and enabled to play, right? And the only way to enable you, to take you from demotivation, from depression, from mental health state problem or whatever it is for one or two of us to start being there for you. And I know there's an army of people who are scared, who are equally talented, if not better than me, but are just too scared to speak out. Old people who can also be very valuable. But now they're starting to tell me, they say, hey, Mthunzi, thank you, man, for showing us it can be done. Hey, Pelatina. Like similarly to seeing the same people abadala also have that problem. They watched, hey, Mthunzi tried, they smacked his head, he never came up again. So now, right? I've got a family to feed and all of those kind of things.
Okay, what about those ones that, like our grandparents would say, "Kaluk na anfundal." You know, they always say those things. They feel like they've got nothing to offer the young ones. So what can you say to reassure them with your academic background and also them having the lack of self-confidence because they're not educated? So what do you say to the uneducated parent who now has got a bright child that they want to mentor? What can they still offer them?
So I'm not going to miss this opportunity to have a shout out to my grandchildren, Keiko and Kenzo. I've got two grandchildren, 14-year-old and a 4-year-old. The ones who believe they're uneducated are actually very knowledgeable people. I'm yet to meet anyone who's not knowledgeable and anyone who can teach me something new. And for me, being taught something new does not derive from going to school. You know, even in the formal structure, we've got something called RPL in this country.
Recognized prior learning.
Recognition for prior learning. And there are chefs who can't read. They can't read, you know, that this is how you make a lemon meringue.
But they can taste, right?
But they can make a lemon meringue.
Okay,
yeah. Right? They don't know that you can't make a particular recipe like this, but they make it, right? And some of them are just creative cooks like me. I'm a creative cook, by the way. I cook a song.
Nice.
I'm participating in a cooking something on the 15th of July.
So it's not the PlayStation.
No, cooking.
It's the cooking.
It's the
Cooking. It's not the PlayStation.
It's not proper. Or is that you think that's why they come to my house?
Why are they always at your house? There must be a reason.
So for me, I think we who have gone to school and you who's...
I haven't gone to school.
Well, your parents have taken you to school and whatever. There's some schooling you've got compared to the grandparents. I think you need to be the ones who encourage them about how much they have to share and how much knowledge. And you know, if you remember and you read, one of the things we failed to do as African people was to manage our oral history and treat it, you know, how you got knowledge to be passed from one generation to the next. That was done by way of old people talking to their children.
At the bonfire.
And you know, like you were telling me you're a herbalist. One of my biggest regrets is that my paternal grandfather was a herbalist. He was known in the village of Kiba that whatever ailment you have, he goes up to the mountain and he picks a herb and he comes and he makes whatever it is, mhlonyana, whatever the names of the things. That's one of my regrets, because my son, one of my kids now, is interested in it. And I'm telling him, he says, Daddy, I thought it just came from me. You mean it's in the family? I said, no, it's in the family, my boy. So for me, herbalism does not need you to go to school, right? And it's an important way of keeping us well. You know, there's a lot of things that not need school. There's a lot of morons who've gone to school.
So you don't use Western.
No, not for the last 14, 15 years. I don't. I've got a lot of allergies and whatever.
Since 2009-10.
And I learned along the way.
Sorry, for the Afrikaners that
He
are
has to
watching.
calculate. You always have to calculate back. It's like, okay, what year was it? You know, I learned, and especially with my dad, when my dad passed away, I picked up that a lot of the ailments that my dad has were from the Western medicine he was taking for one ailment, but it was causing others. There were so many adverse side effects that were caused by this one, and they would say, no, it's a temporary side effect. But when you ask questions, you realize it can't be temporary, because as long as he has this condition and he takes
It's
these
always going
pills,
to be there.
it's permanent, right? So, and so on. So I haven't, and my naturopath is probably one of the best things. I mean, I mentioned her, I did another podcast on, I think it's called what? Leaders and Wisdom or something.
You're also very fit. I won't
Wisdom
lie.
and leadership.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I
It
can
cycles,
say.
I think.
One of the things I can say here.
Really?
I'm above average fit.
Yeah,
Yes.
you look like it.
My garment tells me I've got the heart of a 20-year-old. Yes, because I've done a lot of endurance sport. I used to race bicycles for 14 years, 14 August.
So you're an Iron Man.
I've never done Ironman.
No, I'm just saying you're an Iron Man.
But all round, I swim a lot, I run, I walk to the gym, I walk back from the gym sometimes, depending, except for when my security was at risk because I spoke about things. And I do a lot. I mean, I do a lot. I'm fit,
Prof.
and I'm healthy as well.
He didn't answer this question. I need him to
Which
answer
question?
this
Which question did I not answer?
The positive of this coalition.
Oh, yes. You see, because we have this conversation, and then he comes back and he wants to remember the
No,
year.
he did answer it. He was talking about it's a natural death of the ANC, but he was alluding to that.
So let me specifically answer what could be positive. So you know how we've talked about who is behind Cyril? That, you know, we think it's some big business, Jewish people, or
The
some
markets.
big business, mafia, Stellenbosch mafia, and whatever you, right? Now, all of a sudden, we don't have to speculate.
Now we know for a fact.
We know
Remember
for a fact.
I told you this
No, we know
earlier.
for a fact. It's in the room. It's not only do we know for a fact, it's in parliament. It's got
Remember
a
I told you
coalition
this
with the
earlier.
ANC. So for me, I think it's a very spiritually, because I'm also highly spiritual. I believe revelations are important. And this is a year of revelations. Hence the Palestinian issue and
Cat
Israel
Williams.
coming and boiling to the top.
We just got into the age of Aquarius.
Exactly. So you have that now it's in the room. You know that we were cheated at Codesa. They gave them a stock suite, they got excited. Some of them were given some sweets, they got excited. They got a little bit of political this. Cyril was leading the conversation. My God, this guy. You know,
He's been there.
And
Not an
when we
agent.
got this political power, we had no economic power. Now, all of a sudden, the economic power is going to be in the room. So we're going to be sitting with it, right? So we have a lot now we can talk. So they can manipulate Fitch and Moody and Spoor and whatever, because that is corruption at its highest, right? So people talk about corruption of the ANC. They don't talk about corruption of the DA and big business. That is corruption when you go and manipulate the markets. Now they
The
can't.
rand manipulation,
Rand manipulation.
us being grey
Now they
listed.
can't do that. Why? Because they are inside. They are running the
And they're,
bloody
now,
thing.
they're no longer the opposition.
They
now.
are
They're no longer
running
in the shadows.
They are running the thing. They are running the thing. So there's some goodness about it. We just need
I
to
like
be
that
we need to be
positive.
smart and innovative about how we play this game, because it can be played this game, right? Thirdly, there's also something that's good that's happening. I don't know if you saw, just before the election, Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula got arrested.
Yeah.
Just after the election, Zizi Kodwa got arrested. Now we hear that, who's that guy, the chairman of the ANC?
Gwede Mantashe
Gwede
being
Mantashe
pursued.
is being
Pursued,
pursued, whatever that means. You know, you can see there's some action happening. Plus, the ANC lost how many seats? 79, 70 something. And people like Nesi, that fool, is out. And a lot of other fools are out. You can rest assured, Outa is going to pursue Nzemande. Nzemande, they're going to chase him until they get him. There's some people that are circling Nomvuyo, Nomvula, whatever. Mokonyane.
Yeah,
There's a lot that
NEC Mo.
So the very DA that's
It feels as
partnering.
if like the DA has infiltrated the ANC,
Yes.
and it might just kill the ANC from this infiltration.
I think Cyril actually
Cyril
agreed.
is
I think
killing.
Cyril and the DA agreed with him and helped me clean up.
No, but the thing is
let me get rid of these
is that
people.
if the ANC survives after Cyril's second term, you see,
Yeah.
so So what happened, in my opinion, right, is that the ANC died in 2008. So what happened in 2008 was this, right? You've got the very strong lobby from the Eastern Cape, right?
We got to watch time now. As
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
As well, as
You got
well
the very strong lobby from the Eastern Cape.
As a child waiting at home.
And they were the intellectual class in terms of the delegates from the Eastern Cape. You know what I mean? To qualify to be a branch leader in the Eastern Cape, you needed to be qualified because a lot of them were educated people. You know what I mean? And also their leaders. Zuma brought in the KZN. You know what I mean? Where it was now about numbers.
Yeah.
And then once that clash happened, those who are there because of numbers are going to root out the ones that are there because of how capable they are.
But you must also look, I'm sorry to interrupt, you must also look at another revelation. You saw there was an interview of Zille the other day.
Yeah.
Zille and her fellow thugs in the DA were attacking the Pala thing, right? For forever. Now she says, no, now we can't do anything against Pala because we have a GNU. So you can see corruption is by all of them. I tell all my friends, all my white friends, blue friends, purple friends, I say the ANC and the DA are cut from the same cloth.
Of course.
The others are just far more sophisticated in how they play this corruption of theirs because, you know, you don't say it's corrupt to manipulate the rand, but it's corrupt. You don't say it's corrupt to manipulate things, our status and whatever. It's corruption. It is corruption that is the worst. It's even bigger than the monies that are being stolen by the corrupt people in the ANC. So you've got two, I don't know how to say this in English, but I know how to say it in Xhosa. It says, when you've got ugliness that is together, right? And it can't last. It can't last. There are certain things I'm not going to say on a podcast about positives. Because strategically, we need to use them as a strategy because I'm still part of the UDM.
Don't interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake.
But don't interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. But isn't it the best thing to do to bring your friends close and your enemies even closer?
It is.
So for me, there's a way this can be played.
Okay.
Because now we know the enemy, we're sitting with the enemy, we watch the enemy do whatever it does. I think that's my positive aspect of this, and I want to stop there.
So this is my pitch to you.
Yes.
I'd like you guys to speak to the Patriotic Alliance because they have already joined the GNU, right? I think that the Patriotic Alliance could be a pivot for the ANC or for the progressive forces within the ANC, right? Who need salvation and who need helping right now. The ANC can still be divided, even with this Cyril block. So Cyril needed Gwede to get him through the 2022 conference. Gwede secured the votes for Cyril. Cool. He's chairman again, Ubuyile, whatever the case may be. Now everyone's coming for Gwede. Now Gwede needs Cyril to protect him, and because Gwede is the one who's keeping everyone in line with this whole entire DA, whatever, right? Cyril is going to do what he can to protect him. So they're tied like that, right? What happens in the structure below is that those guys don't know what could happen. They know that they don't have any leverage. You know what I mean? We never got Cyril into presidency. You know what I mean? We never protected Gwede. So those are the two most powerful people in the ANC, as we can see. You know what I mean? It shows itself. So if we can get the Patriotic Alliance, right, from within the GNU to join the Progressive Caucus, right? To join the Progressive Caucus on the basis that they're going to lose their voting base by going into coalition with the DA. Because it doesn't matter how, and he's not an intellectual, it doesn't matter how he spins it, right? To the colored community that he was saying, hey, we need our own faces because these whites have betrayed you and left us, you know, in the dirt. We need our own faces up there so that we can influence things. He's betraying them right now by going into coalition with their enemies. You know what I mean? The people that keep them encamped in the Cape Flats, right? And also, I don't think that he is so committed to his capitalism. You must remember, these people came from the EFF, or its founding. They were there when the EFF was founding. So they do have some socialist values with them. But now, with them being inside the GNU, taking it to 270 whatever seats, right? They are irrelevant because the DA, ANC are all that's necessary.
I hear that Kenny has already asked for a ministry, for example. So I don't know. You know, there's some people
He's
who
very
go-
vocal
there's
about
some
it.
people- There's some people going to politics because of positions they can get. You know, you must
true.
understand that too. It's problematic. I think for me, I'm grateful that what happened 2 days ago. I think there was a press conference by Zuma and the MK that
Yeah, on Sunday.
they announced they're joining the Progressive Caucus. For me, I'm happy that that's happened, for starters, and I hope we can keep it together like that, because it's made up of, as you know, the UDM, the ATM, Al Jamaa, the PAC,
I was there,
the UAT,
and I'll tell you-
and so on.
Yeah.
So for me, that's already good, because I'll tell you on another day, not today, how that happened. I'm not going to say that either.
So we should
because
expect a part 2
we can
then.
have a part 2. I'm not going to comment on the PA too much today as well, because things are still too fluid. Strategically, things are still transient. You don't want to influence what's going. This thing is going to be played when in the next day or two. I think it's important. Yeah.